Hey everyone, welcome to Dollar Games, and there's no shortage of great JRPGs out there. But every now and then you stumble onto one that just hits differently. Something where the story, gameplay, and music all come together so perfectly that it becomes the benchmark. These are the ones that you recommend to your friends, you replay them years later, and you think about them randomly at 2 a.m. Now today I want to share 10 JRPGs that I consider to be straight up 10 out of 10s. Not just because they're polished or historically important, but because they mean something to me. So if your list looks a little different, it's totally okay. Anyways, let's dive in. Persona 4 Golden starts with a weird setup. You move into a quiet rural town and end up solving murders by jumping into a TV. Now on paper it sounds kind of ridiculous, and that kind of is, but the longer you play, the more it pulls you in. Not because of the mystery, though that's extremely solid, but because of the time you spend getting to know the town and the people in it. You hang out, you go to school, you ate way too much steak with your friends, and by the end, it doesn't feel like you beat the game. It feels like you just left Inaba and all your friends there. What makes it work is how it treats your time. You're constantly deciding what to do. Are you building relationships, studying, taking a job, go dungeon crawling? And it all matters. The social links don't just boost your stats, they make the characters feel real. Even the smallest interactions, like helping someone overcome a personal fear or just spending time with them, start to hit harder than most boss fights. The pacing lets you settle into a rhythm of Inaba, and suddenly you're way more invested than you expected to be. The combat sticks to classic turn-based systems, but adds a few twists. Exploiting enemy weaknesses opens up extra turns, and Persona Fusion lets you get creative with your builds. It's snappy, stylish, and easy to get hooked on. The dungeons are pretty simple in structure, but the themes behind them are smart. Each one reflects what a character is struggling with internally, which give the boss fights more weight than just being the next big enemy. It's a strange mix of daily life and supernatural danger, but somehow it all clicks, and once it does, it's hard to put down. Chrono Trigger doesn't waste your time. It kicks off with a simple trip to a fair and somehow spirals into time travel, ancient empires, dystopian futures, and a looming apocalypse. And none of it ever feels bloated or confusing. The pacing is razor sharp. You're constantly moving forward, discovering new pieces of the story that actually matter. The big moments land because it continues to set you up to learn and experience different situations as they unfold while hitting you with some wild plot lines. It gives you just enough to chew on and trusts you to keep up. What makes the story hit even harder is how connected everything feels. You're not just hopping through time for the fun of it. Your actions could change futures or open up new paths, or honestly, both. You're out there fixing problems, causing others, and seeing firsthand how a world can evolve or collapse. It also helps that the cast is incredibly likable without ever feeling like they're competing for your attention, especially since Chrono is a silent protagonist. Frog is noble but tragic. Luca is brilliant and grounded. And Robo somehow has more personality than most human characters in other RPGs. Everyone gets their moment, and it all feeds into the bigger picture. Combat is fast, simple, and satisfying. You can see enemies on the map, so there's no random battles, which was definitely ahead of its time. And the tech combo system makes every party setup worth experimenting with. Whether it's dual attacks or a full-on triple moves, there's always a reason to mix things up. The menus don't fight you either. The pacing doesn't drag, and the game respects your time in ways most modern JRPGs still haven't figured out. And yeah, the music is iconic, as the kids say. Chrono Trigger doesn't just live up to the hype. It's earned it. So Final Fantasy VI doesn't have a main character. It has a whole cast and they all matter. The story starts with a war, a crumbling empire, and a girl who can use magic in a world that's forgotten it ever existed. And from there, things just keep escalating. Instead of sticking to one thread, the game follows multiple perspectives that eventually come together in a way that feels big, but still kind of personal. Some moments are dramatic and heavy, Others are just weird and I love it. Mix that together and it's a perfect storm of epicness. The characters are the reason it sticks. You don't just recruit people and move on. You get actual time with them. Some have tragic backstories, some are just trying to survive, and others are dealing with the guilt or loss in ways that don't always get resolved neatly. And then, halfway through, the entire world changes. What happens isn't just for shock value. It forces the characters and you to rebuild from scratch. The pacing slows down, and that's part of the appeal. You're given space to figure out what's worth holding on to. This space helped me reflect on the first half of the game and really pushed me forward in terms of rebuilding. Combat is turn-based, but every character plays differently, which keeps things from feeling repetitive. You've got blitz moves, gadgets, sword magic, and honestly, even a guy who suplexes trains, because who doesn't like to go king in the ring with a literal train? Fine, that might be a little weird, but you know what? We love it. The Magicite system lets you customize things without making everyone feel the same. And the music, it's still some of the best in the series. Now, Final Fantasy VI is rough around the edges in places, but that's part of why it still holds up. It doesn't try to be perfect, but at the end of the day, it's a perfect experience and worth your time. Trails in the Sky SC picks up right after the first game. And instead of jumping straight back into the action, it lets everything kind of just breathe. Which is great, honestly, because I was still stressed from the cliffhanger at the end of first chapter. Now, stressed in a good way, if you can even say that. So Estelle, the main character, is still reeling from what happened, and the game actually gives her the space to process it. She starts off kind of lost, and over time you watch her come into her own. It's not some big overnight transformation, it's gradual and honest, and that's what makes it work. The story doesn't just keep going, it deepens. The world of Liberl is still one of the best in the genre. Towns feel alive, NPCs remember things you did, and small background details from the first game actually pay off here. The Trail series is known for this slow burn, and this game is a great example of that. It doesn't rush to hit big moments. It takes its time and really establishes the situation. So you start by doing small jobs around the region, but before long, you're wrapped up in something much bigger and more dangerous. By the time the larger story kicks in, you're already fully invested in the people and the world around them. Combat sticks with turn-based strategy, but it gives you a lot of room to play. You're balancing different types of abilities between arts, crafts, and S-crafts, and the orbment system lets you customize how your characters function in real ways. Now, positioning and turn order matters greatly in this game, and some of the later boss fights will definitely punish you if you try to coast through. It's not flashy, but it's solid, and it gets better the more you engage with it. Trails in the Sky SC doesn't hit you with a constant spectacle, but it's incredibly satisfying once it all comes together. This series is definitely one of my favorites, and this game especially gets my day $1 certification. Yes, for when it came out back in 2015. Either way, it's definitely worth a playthrough, so check it out. Xenogears looks like your standard late 90s JRPG at first. Big robots, ancient ruins, a guy with amnesia, but it doesn't take long for the story to start pulling at much heavier threads. You're dropped into a world where nothing feels fully explained, and the more you dig, the more you realize how much has been buried. Faye, the protagonist, isn't some blank slate hero. He's trying to hold himself together while everything around him slowly falls apart. It's a story about memory, trauma, belief systems, and the kind of internal battles most games don't even try to touch. The rest of the cast is just as complicated. Everyone has a history and none of it is simple. Some of the characters feel like they've been carrying the weight of generations, because, in a way, they have. The game leans heavily into themes like reincarnation, fractured identity, and whether we're trapped by fate or just afraid to face ourselves. It doesn't always present things clearly, and sometimes it tries to do too much, But that's part of what makes it so interesting. It feels like a story that's overflowing with ideas, some of them messy, but most of them are meaningful. And honestly, one of my favorite aspects of this game is the antagonists. In most JRPGs, you get this cut and dry look at who is good and who is evil. But in Xenogears, you feel the most from these quote-unquote evil characters. Learning about the history of Ramses makes you feel actual feelings and understand where he's coming from. Does that make what he's doing okay? No, but you can see what went wrong and why. As for Graf, you just need to experience him. I won't say much about him other than he is the best villain of any game ever. Now, combat mixes traditional turn-based mechanics with combo inputs that let you experiment with different moves. Death blows feel satisfying to pull off, and the gear battles add a slower, heavier layer to the fights. Some of it feels a little clunky now, but it's never boring. There's also a shift in how the story is presented later in the game, due to some development issues. Big sections of the second disc are told through narration rather than gameplay. It's a noticeable change, but the core of the story still hits. By the time the credits roll, even with the rough edges, it's clear that Xenogears was trying to say something big, and in a lot of ways, it actually does. Like a Dragon takes everything people expect from a Yakuza game. Street fights, crime drama, wild side quests, and throws it into a full-blown turn-based JRPG. On paper, it sounds like a gimmick, and it's literally an April Fool's joke turned real. But somehow, it works really well. Mostly because of Ichiban Kasuga. He's not your typical brooding anti-hero. He's loud, loyal, kind of a dork, and obsessed with Dragon Quest. And the game leans heavy into that. His whole worldview is shaped by JRPGs, so the battles turn into over-the-top turn-based encounters actually make sense in-universe. The story follows Ichiban after he takes a fall for a crime and spends nearly 2 decades in prison, only to get out and realize the people he trusted have moved on without him. It sets up a pretty serious premise, but the tone bounces between heavy drama and complete absurdity, which if you played other Yakuza games, you know is a series staple. One minute you're helping someone reconnect with their lost daughter, the next you're in a boss fight against a guy in a diaper calling himself the Miracle of Kanagawa. It shouldn't work, but it does, because the characters feel grounded even when the situations don't. Now, the combat is traditional turn-based, but with its own personality. Jobs aren't medieval classes. They're things like chef, host, or breakdancer, and your skills reflect that. You're summoning pigeons, attacking with office supplies, and calling in a crawfish for backup. It's ridiculous, but it's backed by a solid system with buffs, debuffs, elemental damage, and team synergy that actually matters. It's fun, it's weird, and it never takes itself too seriously, but it knows exactly when to slow down and hit you with something real. Now, Like a Dragon might have been a big shift for the series, but it nailed what it was going for, and it's definitely one of my favorites. Terranigma starts in a tiny underground village where nothing ever changes, and then it asks you to break the rules, literally. You open up a forbidden door and everything you know immediately falls apart. From there, the game sends you on a journey to bring the world back to life, one step at a time. This might sound familiar because it's a constant theme across the Quintet games, and I love it. You're not just saving the day in the traditional sense. You're reviving continents, animals, and eventually, human civilization itself. And even though the story gets bigger, it never stops feeling kind of quiet and personal. There's something haunting about the way it handles progress. You rebuild towns, meet inventors, watch cultures develop, and there's this constant feeling that what you're doing is important, but also maybe a little sad. It's not preachy about it, but the game definitely wants you to think about what we gain and what we lose as the world moves forward. There's a thread of melancholy running through even the most hopeful parts, and it sticks with you long after the credits roll. This made such an impact on me that I would literally play this game yearly for most of my childhood. It really hooked me. The combat is real-time and fast, especially for a Super Nintendo game. You've got sliding kicks, jump attacks, spins. It feels good right away without needing tutorials or long menus. There's a basic leveling and equipment system, but nothing overly complex, and that works in its favor. You're rarely stuck in place, and the pace keeps moving you forward one part of the world to the next. The music does a lot of heavy lifting too. Tonally rich, understated, and always in sync with the mood. Now, Terranigma never got an official release in North America, which is pretty tragic, because it's one of the most brilliant games of its era. If you've ever wanted an action RPG that feels great and has you reviving the whole world, this is the one. Suikoden 2 opens up with two childhood friends caught on the wrong side of a war. And by the time it ends, those same friends are standing on opposite sides of it. It's not just about empires or rebel armies. It's about what happens when loyalty and morality don't line up. The story isn't flashy, but it's layered. It builds its tension quietly, and when it finally hits those big emotional moments, they land because you've had time to sit with those characters and the choices they're forced to make. The game's biggest strength is how it handles scale. You're recruiting 108 characters, building an army, managing a growing base, but it never feels overwhelming or like busy work. Each person you bring in adds something, whether it's a new ability in battle or just a quirky little side story. Now, the war system, duels, and turn-based battles all feel different, but still feed into the same rhythm. And somehow, despite juggling so many moving parts, the game still finds room for quiet, somber moments. You're definitely going to experience grief, betrayal, and friendships that crack under pressure. It's a game about war, but it's really about the people caught in it. Now, the combat is fast, fun, and pretty simple. You've got your traditional 6-person party system, runes for magic, and formations that actually make a difference. It keeps things moving without getting in the way. The music is understated but effective, with tracks that lean into the tone without overpowering it. Now, Suikoden 2 doesn't feel like it needs to constantly impress you. It just keeps building, slowly and deliberately, until you're completely pulled in. And when it finally lets go, it leaves a mark, and that's why it's on this list. Xenoblade 3 drops you into a world that's been stuck in a forever war. Soldiers are born to fight, and if they even make it 10 years without dying, they're considered legends. Now, most don't though, and that sets a heavy tone to this game. That setup could have easily turned into something edgy or overdone, but instead, the game leans into something more thoughtful. The characters aren't trying to be heroes. They're just trying to make sense of a world that's never given them the chance to ask why things are the way they are. Watching that perspective shift over the course of the game is what makes the story hit as hard as it does. Now, Takahashi-san was firing on all cylinders when writing this game, and it hit the hardest of the three. Now, the main cast, Noah, Mio, and the rest, start off as enemies forced into this really uneasy alliance. Now, that could have easily been a cliche, but the writing gives them the time to actually understand each other. Their conversations aren't just exposition, they're awkward, quiet, and definitely drives into their connection to each other. The story touches on grief, purpose, identity, and of course, mortality. All the things JRPGs love to tackle, but it does it with a slower, more deliberate pace. There are scenes in this game that literally broke me, and I honestly love it. With the themes it's trying to tackle, I'm glad that this game truly makes me feel something more than your general game. Also, I enjoyed the combat in this game a lot more than the other Xenoblade games. I know it's not as complicated, but I think that's what really sold it for me. You've got 6 party members in battle at once, class swapping, chain attacks, fusion arts. It's a lot, but it's definitely manageable. The customization gives you room to experiment, and the game doesn't punish you for picking favorites. Now, exploration is still a big deal, and the world design is some of the best in the series. Now, the music does its job quietly, but when a key story scene kicks in with a flute theme or a vocal track, it lands. Now, Xenoblade 3 feels like the swan song Takahashi-san has been working towards all these years. That in itself really sets this game apart, especially if you play future redeemed DLC. Do yourself a favor and play this incredible game. Trails Through Daybreak is the series evolving, not in terms of quality, but in how it approaches its world and characters. The continent has shifted, the tone has shifted, and Van, the new lead, feels like a completely different kind of protagonist. He's not a wide-eyed hero or reluctant chosen one. He's a guy who runs a business. He takes jobs for money and prefers to stay out of anything too messy, usually. But of course, trouble finds him anyway. And slowly, without ever forcing it, the game starts pulling him into something bigger, much like his minivan. The story feels more personal than previous Trails games, at least at first. You're not working for a country or caught in a huge political conflict. You're helping clients with problems. Some small, some not. But little by little, threads start connecting. New faces show up, new organizations get involved, and before you know it, you're in the middle of something massive again. But because you started small, the bigger stuff really pulls you in using that typical Trails manner. Now, Van's arc especially feels different. He's complicated, clearly has a past, clearly keeps people at a distance, but the game doesn't rush into explaining it. It just lets him be who he is, and that's kind of refreshing. The combat is where the series makes a big change. You can start fighting in real time and switch into turn-based on the fly. It's not perfect, but it makes exploration smoother and gives you more control over how you engage. The new orbment system is more streamlined, but still allows for a lot of customization. Daybreak isn't trying to one-up past games. It's carving out a new direction, and by the end, you'll be hooked and ready to tackle all other games in the series if you haven't. So yeah, that's my list of 10 out of 10 JRPGs. Not just because they're critically acclaimed or hit some sort of nostalgic checkbox, but because they've stuck with me. These are the games that did something right, whether it was the writing, the combat, the world building, or just one really well-placed song that hit at the perfect time. They might not be considered perfect to everyone, but to me, they hit all the right notes. If any of these are new to you, I hope you check them out. Let me know in the comments what games are 10 out of 10 for you. Thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, a like or a sub really helps out the channel. Until then, I'll see you on the next one. Take care, everyone.